C10 Talk, episode 129, Chassis 10. See what I did there? Damn, son.
When you think air suspension for your build, you think AccuAir. Whether it's the ease of their plug-and-play installation, the E-level touchpad, or their new Endo platform, it's better by design, and it's zero compromise for you and your truck. AccuAir. When you're looking for classic Chevy or GMC truck parts, BrothersTrucks.com is your number one source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC restoration parts. Head over to BrothersTrucks.com and order your free catalog today. If you're like me and you want the best possible products for your build, Mar-K Quality Parts has you covered, from side moldings to bedwood and so much more. Mar-K.com, and follow them on Instagram too. When you need weather stripping for your C10, don't settle for just any brand. Seal your build right and make sure you request the best. Ask for precision replacement parts from your C10 parts supplier. Demand quality, demand precision.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast. Here's your host, Ronnie Wetch.
All right. C10 Nation, getting after it here. Just wrapped up a couple of recordings for the Chassis C10 series and a little build up on this one. Bottom line is there's a lot of companies out there for you to choose from, and I just want to give you guys some information. You know, I don't know that we're going to dive into the weeds the way that we probably could with some of these companies and really get after the geometry and some of the different components. But there's so many companies out there. You got some OGs to some new kids on the block. So the bottom line is we're going to bring you 4 in this episode and 4 more next week. So I hope you get some questions answered. I hope you get some a little bit of exposure to the different builders and the different fabricators that are out there. We've got some East Coast, some West Coast, some Pacific Northwest, a little bit of everything. I guess Ohio is probably about as far, that in Illinois. The chassis stuff is funny because you would think, like, how many C10s are there? And they're evolving, and they keep building, they keep cranking them out. And these companies, it's not like they're getting them out, you know, the second you order. So there's obviously a lot of work for these guys, and they're all pretty busy. So it's kind of a cool thing that the movement is what it is, and these chassis companies are kicking ass. So thought we'd bring you this one. A couple announcements. Please rate and review the show. Please like it. Please follow us. Subscribe on wherever you listen. Obviously iTunes, Google Play. We've got Pandora, Spotify. We've got YouTube. So many different entities. So find us, subscribe, like, listen, and then get us a review. I was just looking. We're at the 395. So let's get that up to 400. If you don't know how to give us a rate and review on iTunes, I can send you a link on that. It's not the easiest thing, but please take the time to do that. Support our sponsors. And then a couple truck show announcements. I did talk a little bit about some of the stuff. So in April, well, let's see here. I think I leave on the 5th. So you got like the 5th, 6th, and 7th. We'll be out in Mississippi with the Dead End guys, and they're doing their crawfish 3rd annual, which is going to be awesome. And then right after that, you've got the Classic Truck Nationals. You're bringing it back to Waxahachie, Texas, and that's going to be April 13th. So April 6th and 7th, we're going to be in Mississippi. Now, I'm not going out to the Classic Truck Nationals, just letting you guys know out there in Texas, especially the guys. I doubt there's that many C10, not C10 guys listening, but they're bringing it all in there. So if you've got a Dodge, you've got a Ford, an International Harvester, a Studebaker, something like that, up above and beyond a C10 GM, then you need to be looking at that. So that's the classictrucknationals.com. That's going to be April 13th. Now, up in the Pacific Northwest, we've got Sunday, April 28th, hosted by Northwest C10s, and you can check them out on Instagram, Northwest C10s. You can also get online at Northwest C10s, that's C10s.com, and get into that show up there in the Pacific Northwest. So I know Jason Dead End Polite's Crawfish Cruisin'. That's the beginning of like a C10 Quattro. You hit 4 out of the 5 shows, which includes Battle Alabama and the GM Truck Nationals, which is out in Tennessee. So you guys can follow those guys on Instagram, but we've got some shows definitely kind of kicking in as we go here. We've got May 4th, 5th, 3, 4, 5. You've got 3 different entities. You've got LS Fest West, which is in Vegas. You've got the C10 Nationals, which is in Fort Worth, and you've got Battle Alabama. So you've got a lot going on that weekend in May. I still don't know where I'm going to go out of those 3. I'd like to hit one. I've got some kid stuff, but bottom line, a lot going on and a lot to do. Chassis series, hopefully you dig it. Hopefully you like it. If you got questions for me, you know how to hit me, Ronnie at C10 Talk, but hopefully you can just go right to these guys and ask them specific. We've got 4 of them today, and then we'll have 4 more next week to wrap up the second part of the Chassis C10 series, and hopefully get you guys the exposure you want to some of these different companies. So, all right, guys, have a great week. Have a great weekend. Stay out of trouble. Do what you do. Please rate and review. Love the show. Love the pod. Let us know how we're doing, and I'll be back next week. Late. All right. Kicking along the chassis suspension episodes, and dude, the legend. We're honored to have Mr. Nate Porter. Nate, I was sitting here looking at it, and our Porterbuilt episode, our Porterbuilt series is all the way back to February 15. So 4 years ago, we sat down with Nate at his shop in Arizona, and it's crazy that looking at those numbers, is over 10,000 people have listened to those episodes, or 20,000 because they both have about 10,000. So, Nate, welcome back to C10 Talk, and good to catch up with you, brother.
Thanks, Ronnie. Great to have me back, man. I appreciate it.
So let's talk a little bit about suspension and business and stuff like that. Tell the C10 Nation who you are, where you're located, and how long you've been building chassis.
Yeah, I'm Nathan Porter. I'm owner of Porterbuilt Fabrication out in Apache Junction, Arizona. I've been doing this stuff for over 20 years, officially as a business for closer to 15. But it's been a good run. We're still plugging right along.
One of the questions I have specifically for you, Nate, is do you ever have a count, like how many official drop members you've built over the years, over that 15 to 20 years?
I wish I did. I don't have an official count. I know it's thousands of them that are out there. Sometimes I wish I did have a better system in the beginning to be able to track everything, but you know how it is. It started out as something that was just an idea that just kind of exploded, and there's a ton of them out there. I'm grateful for it. Oh,
totally. And one of our Arizona legends and C10 legends all over is Dino, and he's kind of said a few times, he's like, I think I have like the number one, skewed drop member out there that Nate, built for me, and he put on his 63 panel.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's kind of where it all started. I had working out of my dad's auto repair shop a long time ago. I've told the story before. It's in one of my other episodes, but this big white-haired Italian dude came by in a donk-style Avalanche, and he wanted me to do some work on one of his C10s and do like a Z or something in the frame. And at that point, I had a couple of different pieces of equipment and a couple of ideas, and I said, hey, let's make something that bolts right in there instead of Z in the frame. And that's kind of where it all started. He's got one of the original prototypes still underneath his panel truck, as far as I know.
Tell us something that we don't know about your product or Porterbuilt.
Something that you don't know, man. I don't know. It's funny. Like I was in a college class before all this started, and we were kind of in the very beginning stages of the drop member. Weren't quite sure what to call it, and I was in a marketing class, and we had to do this marketing assignment and presentation with a group of us, and we decided we were going to pick my company and pick a product we were going to launch. And it was that cross member at that time we were getting ready to do more work on and more R&D and launch. And so we were talking about, and that's kind of where the term drop member was coined. We were in this group setting, we were talking about this dropped cross member, what it does, and I thought to myself, boom, drop member came right into mind. We used it in our marketing class for the project, and it's funny, on occasion I'll still get a couple of messages here and there from some of my buddies in that class who were in that group with me on Instagram, just saying, hey man, it's cool to see where it's come. I remember when we were first doing this project, and this was all like an idea, and it's kind of cool to have that where they can still reach out and let me know that they recognize how far things have come.
Yeah, I mean, intensely, far. I mean, to think, even for you and I to look back and when I first, met you, and then when you look at the podcast and how we started back, 5 years ago, and you and I talked over 4 years ago, how things have continued to kind of just crank along, and the trucks and the suspension and the popularity really of the movement is what I kind of like to say that it is,
Yeah, definitely.
So when you think about your product, what's some options that whether they kind of know, some of the things I've noticed is some guys will really dig in. They'll get on Porterbuilt, they'll get on your website and they'll just dig in. And some guys might not as much. So what options do you kind of create over there that the C10 and the C10 Nation and the C10 owner should know about?
Okay, well, we've got a lot of different products, and we got a lot of products that a lot of people don't know about. Might be our fault for not marketing them quite like we should, but we've been blessed to just be so busy for so long that sometimes when you're keeping things going, you might not want to focus on pushing forth an effort on all these other products when you're already as busy as you can be. But the different options we have, we've got parts as far as the C10 goes, 60 to 62. It's a unique chassis. It's not like the 63 to 72 frame. It's got a whole different front end on it from the factory. The dimensions are completely different on that frame. And for the longest time, people would go and get like a 63 style frame to put underneath their 60 to 62 truck because it was easier to adapt to the later model suspension, easier to adapt to the different aftermarket components. And it seems like there's been a really big revival lately to where we're building a lot of 60 to 62 parts. We used to do, just a handful here and there over the course of the year, but now it seems like we're doing just several kits of those 60 to 62s. We've got a rear kit for it. A bolt-in notch. We've got a lot of different options where you can do like rear frame rail assemblies, the bolt into a notch, so everything from the notch back is a complete fabricated component. Trying to think, we've got back halves that are complete back halves where you cut off your frame right behind the cab mounts and it's a whole new back half for it. We've got some different front frame rail assembly components. We do complete chassis as well. We don't really push those as a volume type part. We do them kind of special order here and there. Seems like our regular product list of the drop member stuff just keeps us busy enough to where, that's kind of the mainstream of what we do. We got narrowed track widths. We've got coilover setups as far as the drop member goes. Mainly there's going to be two different options, either an airbag or a coilover. The airbag version is obviously going to get you all the way on the ground for the level 3 Art Extreme kit. Coilover, we've got a level 2, which is that ultra low ride height. We call it like a level 2 touring. It's going to give you that same really low ride height. And then we have a couple of different kits that are going to let you keep your factory sheet metal, because with the level 3 and the level 2, you got to cut up into your fender wells. You got to modify your bed floor. You got to do all those different things to make everything fit. Trying to think what other options. Obviously, build hood hinges for these trucks. Once you start going low, you got to ditch the factory hood hinges and make a different replacement hinge that goes in the cowl panel.
And you were one of the first companies really to kind of come out with that. I mean, that we've seen that thing phase. I was out in Texas not too long ago here for LST, and there was, you had, I think the initial first ones had like a solo or a mono style strut, and then the latest version has a double, and that's evolved as well, really, right?
Yeah, when it comes to the hood hinges, originally we just had them where there was no stress to hold the hood up. It was just, we called it standard. I mean, it was just the hinge and the cowl. You used your manpower and a prop up rod to get the hood up and keep it up. 12 years ago is when we started doing those hinges. And then we evolved to the gas assist. They've always had a dual strut on each one. It's just kind of the way it started. And again, everything, when you develop new product, you find different ways to make it better. And in my opinion, when you see a way to make it better, you jump on it and make that improvement. And so we've done little tweaks here and there over the years, not just on the hood hinges, but on everything. After you have so many out there and you get so much feedback, you kind of learn the areas to where you might be able to make something a little bit different to make it easier for the end user to install or use, or maybe easier for yourself to build. Different things you see along the way. It always causes little tweaks or changes. Perfect example, something that a lot of guys might not realize. It's a question we get still. When we first started making the drop members, the way that we made it, it was necessary to put the rack up a little bit higher to where you had to notch the frame rail. Obviously a little extra work to put a notch in the frame rail. Motor has to sit a little bit higher, a little steeper angle. A few years back when we came out with what we called the version 7 drop member, it eliminated that rack and moved everything down, and it made it to where a lot of those extra challenges of installing a notch in the frame or kind of trying to dial in some more difficult driveline angles, those kind of issues have all been alleviated in the last few years because of some of the different designs. And again, I get teased all the time out here that we're always redesigning and changing stuff. But again, if you see something that's a better way, you just got to do it.
I would think that that's something got to be one of the hardest things as a guy who cares not only about your customer, you care about what you're building, and you love the trucks and the movement, and you come up with, version 4, for example, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh, well, this is probably going to be better. And then you've sold X amount of 4s, and you're like, I could just see guys like calling, hey, so do I get the new updated version? You're like, well, no, that's just the evolution. You got it when we had it to that point, and it's just tough to make everybody happy and be like, well, I can't refund, 1,000 version 4s when I have version 5, 6, and 7. It's just the evolution and the way that process works. And I'm sure that at times that's probably hard.
It is, that is one of the challenges, and it's something that, most guys understand. On occasion, you get somebody who doesn't quite understand that, but, obviously I've been doing this long enough. It's really simple. Like I went and bought a 2018 truck last year, dude, and it was awesome. I loved it. It's great. But then they came out with the 2019. It's got all these extra features that are cooler and better and different. I can't be frustrated or upset that I don't have all the features that 2019 has. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, it's a great example. It really is. You look back and you're like, hey, you got the best at the time you got it, and we're going to kind of move forward from there. So, why should they pick Porterbuilt? Why should the audience, when they're reaching out and they're looking and they're diving in, what's something that you would say, this is why I want you to consider or buy from Porterbuilt?
Yeah, well, I'm not really a big salesman, so sometimes I have trouble with these kind of things, but really for me it's simple. Like I'm the guy that really originated this replacement cross member kind of, I don't want to call it a movement, but I guess we will. It's kind of it all originated to where I was really the first shop that came in and did this to where it started to take off and just bloom. I might not have been the very first guy to ever do it, but when you look back, kind of this is where that real trend started. And I've been doing it for almost 20 years. It's crazy. You can never replace experience. The things we know and the things we've learned. Trust me, every single issue or question that could come up has come up over the last 20 years, and I've already found the answer for it. So we've got that side of it, the experience. We've got the side of anybody who knows me. I'm kind of a weird dude. I'm really picky. I'm really particular. I'm extremely picky on what leaves. Sometimes it's tough to where you got to be like, man, that part, I got to redo that part. That's not going to go out the door. And granted, there's times in the past to where, there was a range of a couple of years where the volume we did was ridiculous. It was crazy. It still blows my mind, just the amount of parts that were coming out of this place. And, I learned a lot in business at that time. Like it was one of those things where it's hard to do a really high volume and keep a high quality standard at the same time. And so, I've gone through a lot of that kind of shrink and grow as far as what we're trying to put out volume-wise, because it's over the years I found, man, this is kind of the sweet spot of volume and quality. And that's really what we are. We're not trying to be this huge volume shop. We've kind of been there before, and there was a lot of headaches associated with it that I'm kind of glad aren't around anymore. But we're trying to do more of like a boutique. We still do a pretty decent volume, but we're focusing on quality. We're focusing on making sure every part we build is the best possible part we can put out. You make a few tweaks here and there over the years to try to ensure that you're getting the best thing that I can offer and the team that we have here can offer. And we've got great customer service. You can call us, you can email us, you can text us. I call people back and talk to people on the weekends. I text people at night when they need help. We've kind of got that small shop feel still, which is nice. And it allows us to be a little more allows us to cater more sometimes to some of the different situations that come up. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to put something together at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night and know that you can't talk to anybody until Monday morning.
Well, you said you might not be that good at it, but you did a really good job. I mean, it's easy to tout yourself, and from the perspective of your experience and how many, suspension and trucks and things that you've done. Especially one of the things I always like to say back to, our first interview, Nate, really to me was how much involvement you also had with the suspension entity of the forum. So I don't discount that at all. And I remember as much as you did back then that also helped you from the, placement of your business, but it's still time and it's still the knowledge and the experience being pushed forward to the people that were on the forum.
No, definitely. Part of me is kind of sad. The forums have kind of dwindled over the last few years with the the invent of Instagram and kind of the social media craze, to where the forums have kind of been put on the back burner. And honestly, I don't even get to check out the forums very often, hardly ever at all anymore.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same thing. On Instagram's turned into the new forum. But yeah, it's anybody out there, they know I'm the kind of guy that's going to be helpful. Over the years, we've helped out on a lot of different situations for people who weren't even using our stuff. Our goal is to be helpful. This is an industry that there's room for everybody. There's room for a lot of people to come in here and to try to make this industry a better place. And our mindset is to keep it positive and do what we can to kind of help the movement continue in a positive light.
Do you have a company that you, from a suspensions perspective, a company that you kind of, whether you watch them, you admire them, you look at them and you're like, man, they have really nice stuff, and and they're kicking butt. I like their product.
Yeah, there's a lot of different companies out there right now that are doing nice work. I mean, I am a fan of the Craftsman. I enjoy seeing somebody's product that you look at it and go, man, that thing's awesome. I would put it on my truck. Obviously I wouldn't, because I'd make it myself, but you can appreciate somebody else's quality work. And there are a lot of guys out there doing quality stuff. I mean, when it comes to suspension parts, growing up, I was always a fan of the Roadster Shop stuff.
Yeah.
They do nice quality. They've got, it's a big company, it's like a corporation, it's a big company to where they're doing a lot of high-end volume, and just, it's crazy seeing how much work they're actually doing. I'm a real big fan of their design guy. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram or not, 3D Magic Mike. Guy's super talented, but a lot of it, that's kind of where everything's going, is it's the technology side that's driving everything else. It's not like it was back in the day where you could just come out here and do whatever and make it happen. It's like nowadays with everything, you got to have this 3D software and be able to make this model in SolidWorks and then take it from there and advance everything that way. And it's kind of cool to see them. They're kind of like the leading edge as far as technology. And I'm a fan. I don't own any of their stuff, but I'm a fan of their stuff.
Good. Yeah, that's cool. And I appreciate your honesty. I mean, they do good stuff, and they have a very versatile, portfolio, because it's not just trucks, and they sell a lot of different stuff. But, let's crank it out here. I'm going to kind of hit some lightning round stuff. Hit me up on cost. What's some cost of a Porterbuilt, whether you're just thinking drop member, front half, back half, what kind of cost are the C10 Nation looking at?
Okay, well, it's going to vary a little bit. Like, for example, if you're going to want to, we sell it to where it's kind of the hard parts, the parts that we fabricate, and then some of the options are the different third-party parts, bags, shocks, spindle, steering brakes. If you're going to buy, a drop member that's got the steering, that's got the bags, that has the shocks, you're going to be in the $3,500 range. And then after that, it's going to depend what kind of brakes you put on it. There's too many options to kind of start listing prices. Rear's pretty simple, like our standard rear kit, which is going to be notches, bridge, either trailing arms or 4-link with the Watts link. $2,200 is where it starts. And you can put bags and shocks. Those are a couple different options on it. We make, like I said, some different frame rail kits for the back that bolt into the back of our notches, another few $100. If you're going to be doing one of our full back half kits, those guys are around $3,500. And again, you cut off your frame right behind the front cab mount, or right behind the rear cab mounts. It utilizes the cab mount bracket mounting holes to line up. You bolt it in, and you got a whole frame from there back. good hinges.
You kind of alluded to it. You know, are you seeing many orders for full chassis, or are you just kind of trying to stay front and back half type?
You know, the chassis thing. I've got a certain mindset on the chassis, and there's a lot of different types of frames out there right now, and it seems like price point on like spec chassis from Roadster Shop. You got Chop and Blocks chassis where it's 2x4, 2x6. It's laser cut and kind of bent and formed and welded up. Great. It's good for that market. We don't have a frame like that. The frames that we do, it's more of a boutique frame to where it's all cut out of 3/16 plate. It's all welded. It's all ground smooth metal finished rails. There's a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort that goes into building the frame. And so it's not like a $10,000 frame. You know, once you're getting one of those, you're stepping up into the 15 and above once you start bolting parts to it.
Okay, that makes sense. It does.
Yeah,
it's a harder option.
It is. It takes a lot more time, and that's kind of how you rate things. You know, the cost of materials and the cost of labor, and that's where you find out what your cost is and where your margin needs to be and what the end price has to be.
Well, and I think that's why
it's more of a specialty.
We're definitely trying to bring that forward to let the audience know. You know what I mean? Because I could see that where it's like, well, people get online and it's just looking at a price point, and we all do it, man. If I'm shopping for Nikes, you're gonna look at, you look at price point. It's part of it. But to know, well, this has this has this. That's why we're here, and that's why we're talking. Just based on that knowledge and bringing that forward. You know what I mean?
No, definitely.
Okay, so do you guys go up to 98? Are you guys including OBS right now?
We are working on some stuff for the OBS. Got a couple of, I don't want to call them secret projects, but a couple of things we're working on right now that hopefully here in the next few months we'll start bringing to light. But the OBS is a truck that I think is kind of going to be the next C10, how it was a few years ago. I bought one earlier this year that we're doing some stuff on for some kits, and it's funny, like the R&D stage now compared to what it used to be. It seems like back in the day, a little bit younger, a little less experience, I would just try to get something done, and I hate to use the word rush it out to market, but it kind of, looking back, it feels that way. Nowadays, when you rush something, it just creates more headaches down the road. And so the way I've been doing stuff the last few years is I take my time. I don't have to rush anymore. We're taking our time on this OBS stuff, going to make sure it's right, going to do a lot of testing, a lot of fitment, a lot of different things before we actually release it. We're not in a spot to where, we're hurting to move product, and so it's just going to kind of sit there until I'm ready to let it go.
Cool. Yeah, I think the OPS movement, I've got one, and I love jumping in it, and it takes me back to the Post and Mountain View days for sure. It's a fun thing. So, okay, totally. Yeah, I'm gonna rush through these a little bit. Lead time. What are you looking at on your lead time right now?
Right now, if you call and order up a drop member, you're going to be somewhere in the 4 to 6 week mark. We've worked extremely hard over the last couple of years to streamline production processes, to streamline the way we're doing things, and the day of the 10 plus week build times are gone, which is nice. So
for front half, back half, what are you looking at?
If you're doing a back half, it's kind of a special order item, so it might push you closer to the 8 week mark, somewhere between 6 and 8. A lot of it depends on when it's ordered. We kind of take orders in and put them in line. We've got a production schedule, and we've got weeks set out for the entire year, and we plug stuff into those weeks that we know that we can build in that time frame. And so some of the specialty stuff gets put in a slot a little bit longer than some of the standard production parts. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the variance. You can always shoot us an email or give us a call, and Brandon can let you know what kind of a build time you'd be looking at.
Cool. Yeah, I know that's always the biggest question when it comes to chassis stuff is how long am I looking? And I just think, I try to tell the audience, you guys plan ahead. I think we're in this Amazon world, I'm myself included. You just want to order it, and have it here in 2 days. And it's like, if you're thinking this thing, make sure you jump on it and set yourself up for success. So coil over or bags, what are you seeing there? Are you seeing more one way or the other?
We're still seeing more airbag setups than coilover setups go out the door. But there has been a little bit of a trend to where the coilover seems to have been gaining a little bit of ground. We're seeing a lot of guys with older kits converting over to coilover. It's one of those things, like the older you get, I think the more you realize that, man, sometimes simplicity is a little bit easier. So I think there is a little bit more of a trend going to the coilover stuff. We're seeing it a little bit. I don't think it's ever going to just explode to where airbag stuff goes completely away, but I think we're going to see more and more, static, low coilover setups out there just because of the ease and functionality of it. Air suspension is awesome. It's cool. It's kind of the reason I got into this stuff, But again, with it comes a little bit added expense, a little bit added maintenance and effort you got to put forth into it. Just like anything, it's got a few more moving parts to it, and so it's going to create a little more expense and a little more maintenance and effort to maintain.
Yeah, and we continue to evolve, and that's a good thing for both you and I. Skill level, 1 to 10, being putting a battery in, or 1, and then all the way up to 10 being full, chassis shop. What would you say? What would you rate your stuff? A drop member.
Our goal has always been to try to make a really quality, high-end part that a guy can put in his truck in his garage. And for the most part, I would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're drilling holes and bolting in bolts on the front. So is that like a 4? Is that a 3? I don't really know. We always try to tell our guys, like, if you can take that front suspension from the factory out of your truck and you can get those rivets out, you're going to be able to bolt this in. It's not going to be an issue. We do have some of the rear components that need to be welded to the axle. That's something that is much higher skill level. It's important to have somebody who can put down a quality weld and knows what they're doing, proper penetration. It's essential to make sure somebody is competent in that area. So when it comes to welding a bracket on, like to an axle for a 4-link bracket or a Watts-link bracket, I would say it's going to be an 8 or a 9. You got to make sure it's in there the way it's supposed to be. Otherwise, it presents a danger and a safety issue.
All right, cool. Let's see here. Shipping cost. What are you looking at on that? Because you're not shipping a full frame a lot of times. How's your shipping costs?
Our shipping costs, it depends on the rates, obviously. We've designed our stuff. One of the things I try to do is design our stuff to where all of our kits, except for the back half kits and frames, everything else goes UPS. We've designed it all to be modular to where it fits in a UPS, a box that'll fit in the back of a UPS truck and go ground. And so depending on the rates and the distance, a front kit could be a couple $100, could be close to $3, depending on how far we're shipping it. And the rear kits are pretty much close. They're both about the same weights once you put all the parts together.
Yeah, it's something that the builder can't control, so it just happens to be where you're at, and the end user probably has to factor that in. So it's obvious one of those things. They definitely. Yeah,
definitely do.
What state or region do you see most of your stuff going?
It's always kind of been the same as far as the larger number of volume. You're going to see a lot going to California. We see a lot going to Texas. And then, we're actually seeing a lot of stuff go a lot of different places. Obviously in the U.S., but we're seeing a lot more stuff go out of the country as well, which is really cool. We've got stuff in Indonesia. We've got stuff in Germany. We've got a bunch of stuff in Australia, New Zealand. We've got stuff in South America. Obviously not high volume. It's expensive to import and ship to those areas. And over the years, there's some other companies that are making parts. For example, Australia, they used to not have any other manufacturers, but they got a couple different shops right now that are doing similar stuff for the C10 down there that are making some nice parts that some of the guys can get at local now, which is good for them. But, really it's pretty much a smorgasbord. It's going everywhere. Texas and California are the ones that come to mind to be kind of like the most that we see. But other than that, it's pretty well spread out.
All right, my last question for you, brother. How many chassis do you think you've built when you factor in, maybe not full chassis, but when you look at, when you look at a drop member, or you look at, kind of a complete porter belt when somebody says, I'm running porter belt on my truck, what would you put that at?
So if we're considering like a front and rear being a chassis or a complete chassis, it's in the thousands. I wish I would have sat down and taken notes and made a little check mark somewhere for every front and rear kit that went out. But, it's interesting. It's cool. The different social media platforms really, sometimes I'm just blown away. I get on there and I'll do a search for the PBFab hashtag or Porterbuilt hashtag. And, there's 20-something thousand pictures that have been tagged Porterbuilt on Instagram. And so you look on there and you can just see just all the different trucks that are running our stuff. And it's pretty cool to see. It's a humbling thing to see for sure.
Well, I just did the C10 of the year for 18, and I was trying to figure out how many different suspension companies were on those trucks, and those top builds. There was definitely a few Porterbuilt trucks in there, so it's kind of cool to see that as well for you, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely. I'm human. I enjoy seeing that stuff. It makes me feel good. I appreciate it. It's nice to see. One thing people don't get to see is just all the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's worked hard for something knows that sometimes there's a lot of things you sacrifice, a lot of effort you put forth, and to be able to kind of see the fruits of that it's a good thing for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate, for your time. I always enjoy talking to you and catching up. And where can they get a hold of you? Where can they find you? I mean, I think it's pretty evident, but shout it out there anyways.
Yeah, go to pbfab.com. That's our website. We got email addresses there. There's a couple different phone numbers. There's a sales line if you're calling for sales. There's a tech line if you're calling for tech. Emails seem to work the best. We still get a really high call volume, which is nice, and it's just Brandon running the sales side. And so if you call and you get a voicemail, please leave a message. We will call you back. We track that stuff, and we work hard to make sure everybody gets a call back. And, that's where you can find us.
Instagram, Porterbuilt, no brainer. You can check them out there.
Definitely.
And that's probably, you get a lot of traffic there. So, all right, Nate, thanks. I hope you have a great weekend and much continued success. And I always appreciate your time, man.
Hey, thanks, Ronnie. I appreciate it so much. It's really good talking to you again, buddy.
Okay, man. Take care.
C10 Nation. For over 16 years, truck builders continue to choose AccuAir suspension for their air management solution. Today, that choice gets even easier. Endo CVT by AccuAir. CVT. Compressor, valve, tank. Takes all of the components that previously needed to be pieced together and integrates them into an all-in-one, easy-to-install unit. That means an internal compressor with a built-in air dryer, smart sensors to keep everything running smooth, valves in the tank caps, and a plug-and-play harness. The best part? Silent. Library silent. No more buzzing compressors. Finally. Are you ready to choose the latest and greatest in air management? See it and try to hear it for yourself by heading to endo.accuair.com. That's endo, ENDO.accuair.com.
Hey guys, I use precision replacement parts on my builds because I demand quality and I demand precision. If you want the best weather stripping, demand precision. PRP.com. It's that easy. PRP.com. Seriously, check this out. OEM designed parts. It's easy to install, and you have a lifetime warranty. Everything from windshield seals, rear window seals, door seals, roof rail seals, vent window seals, beltline molding, glass run channels, trunk seals, hood decal. You need it, they've got it. They also have their vent window refurbishing program. You send in your wing windows, and they send them back, and they're completely rebuilt, disassembled, sandblasted, painted, and they replace and install new weather stripping, new glass, and handles. Talk about quality, talk about precision, and that's why I use Precision Replacement Parts. PRP.com. And follow them on social media as well. All right, C10 Nation, bring it in. Acme Chassis, and we have Griffin on the phone. Griffin, welcome to C10 Talk, and tell the C10 Nation who you are, where you're located, and how long you've been building chassis.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Well, my name's Griffin. We're out of Fresno, California. I'm the owner of Acme Chassis Factory. We've been doing chassis fabrication here for close to 20 years now. We've been doing our C10 stuff. Had it on market, I think, 4 to 5 years. We've done really well with it. People really seem to be pleased with our stuff. So, yeah, we're just going for it.
Well, so one of the questions you said you've been doing about 20 years, but you've been doing the C10 stuff for about 5 years. What type of chassis fab stuff were you doing prior to that?
We're doing a lot of low-range stuff, off-road stuff, lift kits, roll cage work, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So how'd you switch over, or what made you switch over to, or bring in the C10s and the Chevy trucks into your line of chassis builds?
Well, just the popularity of it. People started hitting us up for it. As you know, C10s are huge right now. One of the biggest platforms on the market. So we decided with our expertise, it'd be a good opportunity for us to design a chassis and show people what we can do.
Yeah, it's we ran into you at LST, and it says you guys were established in 1999. So happy 20th. That's pretty remarkable.
Oh, thank you.
You had some of your products out there. It seemed like you got a pretty good buzz. How was the show for you guys?
The show was awesome. We always do really well there. It's really the only show we do outside of California. It's quite a trek for us to get out there, but for that show, we offer free delivery to that show. So, we took 8 chassis out there. 6 of them stayed there for a new home. So, we did really well at the show. It's a great show, and Texas is a great place to sell chassis.
Well, that's one of my questions for you. It's down the road, but we might as well hit it now. What does it cost to ship a full chassis? I know it depends on states and zip codes and, distance from Fresno, but what's the customer usually looking at that obviously entices them to say, hey, if I can save and Griffin's going to bring it all the way to Texas or close to you, the customer, then what's something that look like?
Usually shipping, we can go, it's kind of the same price if we go to Arizona, if we go to Florida with them. Somewhere usually between $700 and $1,000. So we build basically a 15-foot crate, put it in there, strap it in, bolt all the parts down, build a skeleton crate around it, and ship it from there. So, you get big old present right in your driveway.
Yeah, and I think you say driveway, but I think a lot of companies, those freight companies, I'm not sure, they won't really even ship to a residential, right? You kind of have to get it shipped to a commercial address because a lot of those Freightliner guys, they don't even want to deal with that, right?
Yeah, it's really hard for them to unload without a forklift. But what we've done is we can just ship to their nearest shipping hub, and then go down there with a flatbed trailer, and they'll load it right on the trailer, take it wherever they want.
Yeah, so if you don't have one, get one of your buddies or something like that. All right, so tell us what we don't know about Acme Chassis Factory. Tell me something C10 specific. What is something that you offer that we really need to let the C10 Nation know about when it comes to your company and your chassis, especially from a C10 perspective?
Well, all of our stuff is all 100% CAD designed. I come from a big CAD background, so all the design work is done by myself. We use a 3D imaging program, so it's all 100% CAD drawn. All of our rear rails are all Mandrel bent, CNC bent, and then the other components are laser cut. All of our tabs and everything's all slotted and tabbed, so that way we can't mess up on measurement when we're jigging these things up. Everything puts itself in. It's like a big puzzle, and everything fits. So when we put them together on the table, basically we get everything all tacked up, and then we weld everything 100%. If there's metal touching metal, we weld it. I don't believe in stitch welding or anything like that, and I don't believe in grinding off welds. Our welds are next to, the quality of them is amazing. So what's the point of grinding off art?
Yeah, that's cool. And honestly, you probably brought some of your, the best ones you had, or they're all that high level, but what you had at LST was pretty damn sexy, and you had a crowd around it when we ran into you there. Do you guys, it looks like you do offer front end kits. Do you push out a lot of front end kits, and have you ever offered a rear kit too?
Well, right now we're only doing front end kits for the newer Chevys.
Okay.
We don't have anything available for C10 kits yet. The C10 kits are great, and especially when all this C10 stuff started getting big. But now we're up to the point now where if you're going to buy a front kit and you're going to buy a rear kit, you might as well just buy a chassis. For another $1,000, you could be into a whole new chassis for just about the same price. And then you don't have to bolt these things together. You don't have to worry about lining. You don't have to worry about bolt shifting or anything like that. And you don't have to worry about having 60-year-old rails underneath your truck. You have a bumper-to-bumper chassis that's 100% welded. That's going to be lined up. You don't have to worry about bolt shifting. You don't have to bolt this thing together on a frame tail. It comes to you. You just put your stuff in. It's ready to go. We do get calls for kits. We've entertained the idea, But honestly, at the end of the day, you're just better off going with a whole new chassis.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think back in the day, a lot of people would do front and rears, front half, back half, stuff like that. The trend now does seem to be full chassis. So I could see where you're kind of doing that. What kind of options do you have? Upgradable frame stiffeners, control arms, Watts links, sway bars, all those type of things come with your chassis?
Well, we have two different packages put together. Basically, our lowest package will get you a bumper-to-bumper chassis with all the components. All the tabs, brackets, body mounts, all that comes with upper and lower control arms and a rear 3-link. And those start out at $7,000. It comes with the hardware, bushings, motor mounts, all that. Basically, it goes up from there depending on what other options you want. We offer shocks, fuel cells, spindles, brake kits. We do offer front and rear sway bars as well. I know a lot of companies are doing that, and we sell a ton of them. So basically, we can build your chassis as much or as little as the customer wants. So it makes it nice, if they're just trying to get their foot in the door and they want a chassis, and this is going to be a build they got to save up for, we can get them going. Or they got the heavier checkbook, hey, we can tell them everything they need right out of the gate.
Yeah, and I could see where, people like to piecemeal that together, maybe to save a little bit. So you start out, 7s. Let's say a guy goes full top of the line. What kind of high end are they looking at? 12, 15, if they add everything in there?
We can get up to 25 if we do the air management, powder coat, fully built 9-inch, bare brakes. It can add up pretty quick. Just because price of components are high. So,
would you say a lot of people do add a rear end, a Curry, a 9-inch, or whatever options available? Do most people want that rear end when they're going to 4-link it per se?
A lot of guys do. We sell quite a bit. The rear end we offer is actually made by Competition Engineering, the full sheet metal rear end. And what's nice about it is, if you're our customers are typically, they're going to spend a lot of money on this truck, so why go with a stock 12-bolt or stock 10-bolt? For a little bit more, you can build up a 9-inch, and then when you get from us, either we can build it to your specs, or we can just send you the housing with all the brackets welded to it, so you don't have to try mocking up your rear end and all that. It comes to you already done, set up, pin angle set, all that, and then you can cut down, make it your own width, or like I said, we can build it out for you.
And you said air management earlier. You talked about that. So do you create specific tabs and everything there? If the guy says, hey, I'm going to run AccuAir, and you're going to, add some different tabs and mounting brackets for all the different components that entails?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have everything's already figured out. So if somebody wants to run AccuAir, all they got to do is basically bolt on their sensors. We have brackets for all the tanks and compressors and all that good stuff. We try to make it as easy for the guy as possible, unless, some of these guys are fabricators and they want to do it themselves, and awesome. It's like I say, it's as much or as little as they want to do.
So, Griffin, Acme Chassis Factory, 1999. Why should the C10 Nation choose you?
Well, we've been doing fabrication for a long time. We're not the new kids on the block. We make a quality product. I stand behind everything we do. We're not a big shop. Honestly, we only got a couple of guys here. We do a chassis a week, and I touch every part on every chassis. So I know it's right when it leaves the door. And if there's an issue with something, we stand behind it 100%.
When you think about it, let's say, the last 5 years, you've been doing C10s. About how many C10 chassis have you sent out to the world?
I think we've done about 120 chassis.
Cool. How's the feedback been?
People seem to love it. I mean, people like the design, and that's kind of a big thing for me because they're all my baby, So I love hearing good feedback, and I love to hear, hey, if you change this and make our lives a little bit easier. We don't do installs here. We just manufacture the chassis. So anything a customer tells us feedback, hey, if we need to make a change, I'm not too proud to do it.
I tell you what, one of the things that I was just talking to high profile builder today, and we were talking about how I was telling him about the chassis episode, running some questions by him, and we talked about how it is pretty crazy how we've evolved. We love the trucks and we want to build the trucks and we love the lines of the trucks, but a lot of times it's right there with the whole build is the chassis build as well. So whether the full chassis comes in and a guy is just, putting it all together, somewhat, Lincoln logs and Legoing it and making it happen. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, just project to look at a chassis, even if it's a stock chassis and you're going through it, even if it's, from the beginning of the stock chassis to the end, to the highest built, custom fabricated chassis you can get, something about seeing that skeleton, seeing that bare bones, and kind of thinking, this is the baseline. This is, kind of the backbone of my truck or my build.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the foundation of the truck, and without the proper chassis, the vehicle it's not going to handle properly. It's not going to drive right. You're going to have issues down the road, and if the fit isn't there, you're going to have hell trying to put your truck together. So, the chassis is definitely, the most major. You got the best paint job in the world, best upholstery in the world, and if the chassis isn't holding together right, it's kind of worthless. So
when I was a kid, somebody mentioned the term dogleg to me, and I'll tell you what, I never forgot it. And I love Chevy trucks, I love GMC trucks, but it does seem like a lot of Chevy GMC. Yeah, to me it was more square bodies back in the day with dogleg. And for the audience, that meant that the rear end and the front end just really weren't all that straight. So maybe it was 6 inches, maybe it wasn't. But the way that those things would drive down the road, like a dog walking, the ass end was off to the side one way or the other. And to think, again, I just built a house and remodeled the house, and it's crazy if you don't start plumb at the beginning, then it obviously some things get thrown off continually, or you're making something up or trying to fix something throughout the process.
Absolutely. Like I said, chassis is the thing that holds the whole vehicle together, and if it's not right in the beginning, nothing else will be either. So.
Well, you've been around a long time, Griffin. Let's say that you know who your competition is. Do you have somebody out there that you look to that you really like their style? If you were building a truck, you weren't in the chassis industry, would you? Is there a competitor out there that you look at their stuff, you're like, man, I really like their chassis?
Every company out there is doing good work. This game is an evolution of where it came from. So everybody's trying to outdo everybody else, and a lot of these companies are making great products, and they have some good innovations. I feel our stuff is definitely top of the line, but I'm not going to say I don't cruise the internet, and I'm not impressed by what I see out there. So it's definitely a great time to be a consumer in the C10 market, because there's a lot of great options out there for them.
Yeah, meaning you absolutely are impressed, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And you guys, it looks like you handled that well. I was going to press you a little bit, but I understand. You guys go more than just C10s. It looks like you guys go all the way up to the new stuff, to the 17s.
Yes. Yeah. Right now we have from 47 on the current for all GM stuff, and then we have all the older F100 stuff as well.
Wow.
And we're not against building something something totally different. We just had a Hudson pickup delivered to the shop Monday, and I've never even seen one in person. The guy wants a chassis for it, so we'll build a chassis for just about anything.
When you said that you delivered out 7 chassis and then 6 of them went home, what give us an idea of what those 6 chassis were for?
This year seemed to be square bodies. I think we delivered 4 square bodies to LSP. That seems to be a really popular platform. Year before, it seems like we took mostly 67 and 72 stuff. We just came out with the 88 to 98 chassis with OBS, and I gotta say, that's going to be the next C10. Those are so popular. We took a ton of orders for those chassis at the show. We delivered one for a 2-door Tahoe. I know that's a super popular truck as well. But yeah, it seems like the 88 to 98 market's going to be really big here in the next few years.
Yeah, you're on point. I mean, I can see it already. It's happening. So good to see that you guys are taking orders. Okay, let's go. I put together kind of a little lightning round here. We're getting to the end of the time, Griffin, and I want to kind of quiz you on a few things here. What's your lead time on a chassis?
Currently, right now, we're about 8 weeks out. It varies depending on our workload. Like I said, we do about one a week. We took a few orders at LST, so that slows down a little bit. I typically try to be 4 to 6 weeks out, but we did get pushed back.
Well, if you're 8 weeks, you're
so.
kicking ass. That's pretty good. So 8 weeks. Are you seeing coilover or bags? What kind of setups are you seeing taking orders for?
It used to be all bag stuff. We didn't do very much coilover, but the coilover stuff is getting popular. We do change our chassis up for the coilovers. Like we start with bags because that's what was popular. We started to get some interest in the coilover stuff. For our coilover stuff, we do a 4-link with a Watts link in the rear as opposed to a triangulated 3-link. Seems to work a little bit better for these guys that drive their trucks a little harder. And we do offer sway bars front and rear for those as well. But coilovers are definitely picking up steam for sure.
Okay.
It used to be that the guys would take the stock chassis and make coilovers work. It's like, but now with the game stepped up, they're just buying a whole new chassis that's already set up for it.
Skill level 1 to 10, 1 being installing a battery or something like that, up to 10 being a full Delmo or Kindig or something. What skill level do you put on once a guy gets a hold of your chassis?
To do the install, I would say probably a 4 or 5. A weekend mechanic can definitely do it. It's a matter of just bolting on components. If they can, the most time-consuming parts are plumbing and wiring, depending on how good they are at that, and really how far they want to take that. I mean, you could do, stainless steel hard lines, which would take you, it takes us a week to do a full chassis, if we're going to plumb it out for somebody, just in how clean they want to do it. So I'd say probably a 4 or 5. These kits do bolt on a little quicker because you don't have to pull the whole truck apart. But if you're trying to, most of you guys are building the truck of their dreams, so why not step it up a little bit? But they can, average guy can definitely do it if he takes his time.
Excellent. How about your thoughts, powder coat versus paint or like a pour 15?
I'm definitely a fan of powder coat. We're fortunate here in Fresno. There's about 12 powder coat shops, so we can get them done pretty quick, pretty reasonable. I know, across the country, some of these guys got to drive a few hours to get to a powder coater, but powder coat is definitely the way to go. We do offer powder coating if they want to do it. We charge $1,500 for a single stage color to powder coat all the components. It's definitely a very very sturdy process. The only drawback is touching up your chassis if you do scratch it. You're kind of limited on the way you can do it.
Sure.
So that's the only drawback to powder coat. I'd say powder coat's definitely the way to go. That's but that's my 2 cents.
Okay. What state or region do you see most of your purchases? Kind of a generalized area.
Texas. We ship probably 50% of what we sell back to the Houston area.
Wow, big trucks out there, brother. They love their C10s. They love their trucks.
They do, and I gotta admit, those guys know how to build them back there. So, and they're not afraid to put the money in the right places.
All right. Well, this is exactly what I was looking for here, Griffin. Tell the audience how they can get a hold of you, where to look you up, and dive in deeper on Acme Chassis Factory and any questions that they might have. Well, how do they get a hold of you?
We're on social media, acme.chassis.factory, or you can go to our website, www.acmechassisfactory.com. Send us an instant message, give us a call, email, however you want to do it. You'll most likely be talking to me directly. So any questions you got, I'm more than happy to talk to you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And Griffin was out there at LST. He's the guy that's going to talk about quality control. If it goes through his company, it goes through Acme Chassis Factory, it's going to go through Griffin. So, again, that's Acme, ACME, .chassis.factory, and then acmechassisfactory.com on the web. And I got to ask, do you have any kind of Warner Brothers, Coyote, Roadrunner? How'd you come up with Acme?
Acme is an acronym for American Corporation, Manufacture Everything, and that's what we're all about. All this stuff's made here in house. We're Americans. We're proud of it. And when you laser cut it in a piece of metal, it looks real nice.
Griffin, I had no idea that's what that was for. So American company, manufacturing everything. corporation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, American corporation, manufacturing everything. ACME, Acme. I learned something new. That's awesome, dude. Thanks, Griffin. Thanks for your time today, and appreciate your time. And for the C10 Nation, if you've got any questions, hit them up. Thanks, Griffin.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, guys, rolling along with our chassis series. The one, the only, Mr. Chopping Block, Vince Lombardi. What's up, my brother?
How's it going, man?
Good. Cranking along, just trying to get these out and bringing the C10 Nation some info on, chassis, and obviously one of the ones to consider, and one of the ones that I hope they consider is Chopping Block. And you guys have been around a long time. Tell the C10 Nation who you are, where you're located, and how long you've been building chassis, Vince.
Yeah, so we're located in Fresno, California, in the Central Valley here. I've been in business now since 2006, so we're working on 13 years now. Started basically right out of high school, and we've been building chassis ever since, and product line since we started. And let's say about 5 years ago, we've completely got out of the building customer vehicles and just gone straight into the manufacturing side, because we saw a lot of needs for a product that wasn't available, and we really wanted to focus on the consumer and get some great product out there. So that's kind of where we're at today.
And when I think of Chopping Block, I think of two series of vehicles. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Lincoln and I think C10s.
Yep, and then Cadillac. Those are our three big deals: Lincolns, Cadillacs, and C10s.
Cool. What's the difference? I mean, when you break it down, obviously, like say from a car, a passenger vehicle to a truck, what are some things to throw out to the audience from that perspective when you're looking at a chassis?
Well, some of the cars, like the Lincolns, they're obviously unibody, so we unfortunately can't do a whole lot without doing some extreme amount of work as far as building the replacement chassis. But, I think on the truck side, they're just a lot more people are into trucks. They like them. Their dads or grandfathers had them. They're kind of more easier to work on and stuff, because you can take a lot of the car apart, take the bed off the front ends, where some of these cars don't come apart quite like that. And so, when we're looking at stuff like that, that's why we see the C10 market just so huge and people enjoying it. And there's just a lot of more product being developed and stuff with those, and people do enjoy that stuff. So I think that's why the chassis stuff is just the ticket for the truck market.
It is funny to kind of hear that perspective, because a car, it's just, we're so lucky with the trucks that you can pretty much take the whole damn thing apart.
Mm-hmm.
When you're building it, it's like you can take the whole thing apart. You can look at it's not that hard. It's not that difficult when these guys built these things and engineered these things, especially when you look at like a newer vehicle and a unibody and even those older cars. The amount of work and the amount of, to get your buddies over to lift a cab versus lifting a car, lifting a unibody Lincoln body or a Cadillac. It's a ton of work.
Yeah, it's a lot more. And it was funny because one of my good friends, Marcel from Auto Revolutions, when we were coming out with developing the new chassis for the C10, he kept saying, "Oh man, nobody wants, full replacement chassis. People don't want to take these cars all the way apart. It's difficult." And I kept telling him, "I think you're completely wrong." And here we are to this day, and now that's what everybody wants. And they're so easy to take apart. And him coming back, he's like, "Yeah, you were totally right. I was completely wrong about this." And, maybe on the car side, it's a little bit different, but truck-wise, people are willing to take these apart, and they're not hard,
That's one of my questions, is jumping right to it, really, is do you see a lot more full chassis versus front or back halves?
Yeah, we do, especially with this truck, because when you're looking at it, by the time you put a front and rear kit on, to do it right, you've really only got, let's say 4 feet of factory rails left. And a lot of these trucks have been wrecked, they've been twisted over time. People welded on them, lowered them, did, cutting the C notches, not very proper and good. So stuff's tweaking. And really there's, you're having to weld off holes and try to frame straighten all those. And at the end of the day, it's really a lot less work, and it's never going to be as nice as a brand new chassis. And for the few $1,000s more, it comes worth a lot more. Plus, people have these trucks still driving, and they're able to buy a chassis and start putting a new motor, running all the brake lines, doing all that, powder coating the chassis and getting ready while they could still enjoy their truck, and then swap it over when they're ready.
Well, one of the things you said is like, okay, it's a couple $1,000s, and that's a lot. And I think the audience, and just from the time I've been doing the pod, has evolved as well, because you look at a front half, you look at a back half, and then you're like, okay, well, that's a lot more money. And one thing is the audience can piecemeal those together, and they can do that when they get their money, and they can, maybe they buy there was a trend there where guys would buy a chassis, a C10 chassis, buy let's just say a 70 chassis out of a C10, it's a short bed, and then they could do that same thing. But when it comes down to time, I think that $1,000, they're like, gulp, I can spend that on this. But then when you factor in some of the time, it starts to, and the older I get, the more value I put on my time, you start to really chomp into that time, and you're like, hey, it's probably worth it. And for full disclosure for the audience, Sam Casanova and I, he's building a square body utility truck. We went up to Delmo's, and Delmo had put together a chop and block chassis, and it was a front half, back half that he put together on a C10 chassis. And I saw that, and I just thought to myself, man, Vince and I were working on something for the tow truck for free tow lay. And I said, dude, I think I'm just going to switch it up on you and go full chassis, because the level of time, and to have that thing and the integrity there. And obviously with the C30 chassis, you're looking at a way thicker chassis that we're going to try to bolt up a front and back half. But I think that's where, you're definitely seeing some evolution there, where guys are going with the full chassis versus, just piecemealing things together.
Yeah, no, it's definitely evolved that way. I mean, yeah, it's still a lot of money, but a lot of times if people can't do some of the work themselves, they're taking it to a shop, and by the time a shop gets done of welding and grinding holes and trying to straighten stuff, it ends up being sometimes more money than what it would be to upgrade to a chassis. And so a lot of people are like kind of just saying, you know what, I'm going to save the money and just get it all at once. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a huge shift to the chassis side.
And honestly, I mean, to buy a C10 chassis, a used short bed, I mean, I've seen them from anywhere from $400 to, $1,400, depending on if it's got some rolling, some axles and some different rolling gear spindles and stuff like that on it. So just a bare bones chassis, maybe $500. But so then you factor that in, you're like, well, still you're dropping $500, $600 on an old chassis. So then you say, well, $2,000 more, and you've got it all together. So it is one of those things where, each individual is going to have to make their decision. They're going to have to look at their finances. They're going to look, how do I get the chassis out to me, and then make that decision. But there's plenty of options out there. Tell the audience something we don't know about your product, about Chop and Block, and what you kind of represent.
Well, I mean, for us, I don't know if everybody knows, but we do manufacture everything 100% in-house. So we can control the quality. We're designing, we're developing everything here. We're not as fast as some of maybe our competitors, because we like to take the time, put a couple trucks together, get a builder or two involved in every product to actually put the whole truck together and test fit it and drive it, so we can see. And we're literally engineering each chassis for each model of vehicle. We're not just taking a standard front end and swapping it on every, year vehicle and just making it work. We're literally looking at what the truck length is, what it weighs, the GC heights, checking for caster and cambers and stuff. So we're literally developing these things per vehicle year segment, because we want to make sure that these people are going to enjoy it. We want our customers to drive these trucks. We don't want them just to spend all this money and park them in the garage and never drive them, because like, oh, the thing doesn't drive great. I don't like it. I can't turn, etc. So that's kind of some of the things that we're doing, that I don't know necessarily if our competitors are doing, but what I know we can for sure say we are doing. And then we've always tried to look at, every time we come up with a product, if there is somebody else in our product segment that we're competing against, how can we be better and different from those people, from price to quality to more features? Because we don't want to just come out with the same old Jane product that everybody else is and just say, well, we make it too, and here it is. We want to be able to go out and tell you, this is why we did this, so we can be cheaper, we can be better, we can be faster, etc. And so that's why we've developed our modular chassis. because we saw the issue with so many people wanting to buy chassis that was, as we just talked, versus a front and rear kit, but spending $300 to $500 on a crate charge, a couple $1,000 a ship, you're in it, $1,500, $2,000 in shipping. And we've developed a product that we can ship from California to, let's say, New York for around $500, including crate charge. So these are some of the things that we're looking for our ends, for our dealers, and for our customer side, why we want to be different and stuff and still have the quality there.
So for the audience, when Vince says modular and the perspective of shipping that chassis, it's one of those things where you have the frame rails, but the chassis isn't together in one complete box that ships out like you could imagine a full chassis would. Say something like a Roadster Shop, spec series chassis. The modular chassis comes in pieces.
Right. Yep. It's front to back per frame rails is all welded one piece. And then basically all your cross members are bolting in from the front end cross member to your bag mounts, your bridge, your C-notch bridge, etc. So you can blow it all apart and we can ship it very cost efficient.
Cool. Yeah, that's definitely something that, unique to you guys, and just try to explain that, because I don't think sometimes the audience is going to be thinking, full chassis and that modular perspective. And you can see some of that on social media and online and kind of see what Vince is talking about when a chassis is blown apart there, and especially from the perspective of the the rails and the frame rails. So what's some things, Vince, that you guys offer, some options to, some different things that you can, upgrade to when you're looking at a chop and block chassis?
Yeah. So basically we've got a few different packages, with our chassis. So, we know, especially in the C10 era, the 60 to 87, we've got a lot of guys that, been working on the trucks for years, right? So they've got drop spindles, they got disc brakes, they got a good rear end and stuff. So we've also developed packages for people that already have a lot of that good product and they don't want to have to rebuy it. So you can buy just the suspension and the frame rails and put your spindle, put your brake kit and your rear end on. But that way you can reuse those products that you've spent your hard-earned money on, and that's still good. And then we've kind of go up from there. As far as sway bars, front and rear, fuel cell options, battery boxes. And also when it comes to the air ride side, we're the only company that integrates all of our e-leveling sensors into the chassis. So we're making that AccuAir install a million times easier on figuring out there's only a very small amount of measuring and work to get that sensor to work, where this is the future. Everybody wants the leveling system, and sometimes you got to take it to a professional because it's difficult to install after you do a couple, learning it with your math. And now we've got to integrate it in our product, so we can just have that just good core chassis together using some of the best product out there.
Ride height sensors, when you put them in on all four corners for the audience, there's got to be a specific location, and it's going to, kind of communicate, back to the ECU and read that. And that's one of those things to consider when you're looking at a chassis. Okay, I've got to, weld on this, I've got to mount this. And what you're saying is that's included.
Correct. Yep. That's included in our package one chassis.
Okay, that's cool. What's one of those things when you guys look at it and you kind of talk about the evolution of it? Do you see more front half, back half style, or is the full modular, full chassis catching up?
No, the chassis is definitely catching up and taking that over. And like we had talked earlier about this, that it's just people are kind of seeing the benefit of saving the money and putting towards that extra, $1,000 to $2,000, depending on the options, putting that towards a full chassis. And plus, people like, I think the idea, especially with our product being, the modular, is that they can go out into the garage and, get their sons, their daughters, their kids with them and go and put it together. And so, and then they're knowing they're getting something that's stronger, more reliable, than using the factory chassis stuff and less work. So we're definitely seeing as a push is definitely more people are wanting chassis.
That's a Rector set for adults, I guess.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, I guess us grown men never grow up as kids, right? We're always got the Lego thing in mind and always wanting to build. So it just gets to be more bigger things, I guess.
Oh, dude, it's totally that way. And I talk to guys at work, and they're like, I don't really want to go work on this or work on that. And to me, it's like, dude, it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun being out there, and it's a lot of fun building it and then stepping back. And really, something that we talk about all the time on the pod, and especially when you talk to, different builders, but that rolling chassis is second to none. I mean, covering it with the amazing sheet metal that GM created, 40 plus years ago, that's a special thing too. But when you look at some of these rolling chassis with big hoops, and whether it's coilover, whether it's bagged, whether it's, the motor sitting there, and you look at that power plant, you look at that chassis, it's a gorgeous thing.
Yeah, and especially, you're going to go, these guys, customers spend a lot of money in new motor swaps. I mean, obviously, the LS craze has been going on for a long time. Most people aren't running small box, big blocks anymore, with the LS. And, go spend, $10,000, $15,000 on a nice motor and tranny, and you've got, kind of your just older standard chassis that it doesn't look good quite to mate to that. You've got 600 horsepower, but can your factory chassis handle that? And you want to be able to drive this thing ultimately at the end. So that's, I think people are starting to really realize this stuff and willing to spend the money to do it right. And that's good for the industry, because we don't want product and people out there, not doing it safe and having good quality products.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why should they choose you? Why should the C10 Nation choose Chopping Block?
We've been out, like I said, in the industry for 13 years. We're not going anywhere. We're growing every day and developing new products. So we do have a good core back. We have a lot of products worldwide out there. I believe we offer something that's unique, definitely features that our competitors don't offer. And we also got quick turnaround time. We're shipping chassis between 2 to 4 weeks from placing the order. So we're out there to develop something high quality and at a good rate.
Do you have anybody you look at, whether it's from just a business perspective or from a chassis perspective, a competitor that you kind of watch and you think, man, they're putting together some really rad shit?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen obviously Road to Shop over the years, met those guys and stuff, and I think they do amazing work there. Great guys. I especially watched one of their designers on Instagram, and he's kind of building his own truck and just wild with it. And I appreciate the amount of effort and quality Road to Shop puts in stuff. And Art Morrison, as well, and all those guys, they've been around a long time. And what I like is competing with guys like themselves that are out trying to continue to evolve and make a quality product. And so I always look at it in businesses that there's no reason to hate on some of these other competitors because there's enough business to go around. And as long as we're going back and forth evolving on the product line, it's great. So they might come out with something, then it pushes us to develop something better. And that's just really a win for the consumer side.
Absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of meat on the bone. It seems like it's crazy how many C10s in the movement are out there. And we're just growing. We're learning, we're growing, we're having fun, and it's companies like you that are helping facilitate that.
Yeah. No, I mean it's big. I've always said that the C10 now is like the new Camaro. I mean, you remember, Camaros were just, they're still big today. Everybody's still building a Camaro, and the C10 has gotten that way. It's a very popular vehicle.
Yeah, the platform is, it's there, and there's a lot of them, and they're still in good shape, if not great shape, and you can build some really rad shit, and the truck movement and the C10 movement is awesome, and we're stoked that there's companies, and that's part of the process that makes it so popular, is because a guy can get online and he can pick some rad parts because there's so many companies out there doing rad shit.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Like I said, it's definitely a win for the consumer side.
So cost, what break that down for us? If a guy's looking for a full modular setup, if a guy's looking for front and back half, he's going to piecemeal it. Give us some numbers on that.
So our chassis basically start coilover airbag. There's a few $100 difference between the two, but basically our package one is starting right under $8,000, $79.49. And then we kind of go up upkeep packages, including new rear ends and brakes, and you'll see them just shy of 10,000, as a full roller. As far as front and rear kits, you're looking at $26.25 for a front end and $27.95 for a back half. Now there's obviously options in those, from different transmission mounts, and a few different options that you can then kind of put together a front and rear kit to work with a chassis. But give or take, the difference is about $1,500 when you full package out a front and rear kit versus a chassis. There's about a $1,500 increase on the chassis wise, which you're getting some other components as far as full brand new rails and full inner structure that you would not be able to get with the front and rear kit.
Well, and like you said earlier, you can still drive your truck if you choose. If you're going to upgrade or you're going to buy a used chassis, you're going to spend, anywhere from $5,000 to $1,000 on that. So you end up just kind of equalizing it over time. And so if you can come up with that extra $1,500 to $2,000, I could see where that's a benefit for, the consumer.
Yeah, I agree. And definitely, shipping is also calculated in some of these people because, it's still costing us about the same amount of price for a front and rear kit to ship on a pallet to almost just the chassis itself is. So you're not seeing a huge increase there, but when you go look at some of the other product line and competitors, they're spending so much more money on the shipping that it does hinder even that because it's an extra $1,500 to $2,000 on top of the chassis price. So I think for us, at least in our business and our customers, that's why we're seeing the extra push change because they're realizing the shipping is costing them no difference from a front and rear kit to a chassis.
Where do you think you are from the perspective of your evolution from 13 years ago to now? I mean, when you look at hey, we're on our 5th design or something like that when it comes to the last series of chop and block chassis.
We've come a long way. I mean, back in the day when we started, obviously we didn't have all the fancy CNC equipment and programming softwares where we were out, hand doing all this stuff. And so we've just grown a lot, in the last 5-6 years with that alone. And we've done a few revision changes over the years that we learn. And, sometimes it's good to get the product out there. You needed to get into different people and years vehicles to see, because these older vehicles, it's tough. They weren't made as precise as today. So you got to see where you need slop and maybe some adjustment and stuff for the consumer side, and that we're always working. So I would say evolution-wise, I think we're on the right track. We keep growing, but every day we're tweaking the product. Every day we're listening to our dealers. We're listening to our consumers, our customers, and saying, hey, what do you want to see different? What would you like? What didn't you like? So every day we're just trying to continue the development and just keep going with the product line there.
Dude, you said something that just cracked me up, and you said, they didn't build these trucks as precise as we're building our stuff and these products, and you have to have slop in there, and you couldn't be just more accurate. And, we think, well, it's coming from the factory. It's got to be just right. Dude, these trucks were not built to the precision that we would all hope, would have been, 40 plus years ago. And depending on the tooling and, was it the first year of the truck being built? Was it the last year of it being built? There's a lot of slop in these trucks. And to hear you say that, it's very ironic.
No, I mean, it's the truth. Especially in the C10s, I don't know how many times they change different bushing mounts and stuff halfway through the year. And, how do you know what bushing these people have? And there might be half an inch of adjustment. So it's the truth that there needs to be some adjustment and slop made for these older vehicles because they're not as precise as what we're making them to. They're just not. And that's the truth. And a lot of people, I think, sometimes forget that. And they expect everything to go perfectly together. And I'm like, well, is a truck been wrecked? Well, no. Well, do you really know? What day of the week was it made on? Were Friday trucks always the trucks that had issues? You never know. So it's the total truth. I mean, we see it every day.
Yeah, that's cool. What about the OBS stuff? Are you going to start getting into that?
Yes, we started developing that stuff about 1.5 years ago. That is our next goal because since we've gone all the way down to 47 on the Chevy trucks. So we've got the whole line from 47 to 87. So this year we're launching a bunch of new OBS products at SEMA.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and you know, just for the audience, Vince and his crew, his dad, Joe, and the fellas have been out to SEMA the last few years, and it's always cool to see some of your product out there, not only in your booth, but, you know, outside when we get to see, you know, some of the trucks that you bring along with to SEMA each year. So you're thinking a little tease that you might have an OBS truck there this year?
Yep, we will. We'll actually probably have quite a few of them.
Okay, cool. I'm going to buzz through some lightning round here just to kind of get us out the door. Lead time, you said, roughly 4 weeks?
2 to 4 weeks on a chassis. Yep, and it really depends on if you're ordering rear end and the brakes. But most of the time, 2 to 4 weeks, we're hitting that lead time.
That's about the fastest I've heard.
Yeah, and that was part of the development of why we did the modular chassis, because majority of the components we can keep on the shelf, ready to go. So we're only building frame rails per order.
So would you say that you have, like, depending, are you running like 3 different series? Or so it's like, okay, I've got the Lincolns over here, I've got the Caddies over here, and I've got the C10 CK series over here? Or are you just like, okay, today, this week, you know, the 3rd week of the month we're doing Caddies, the 4th week we're doing Lincolns, and then boom, the first 2 weeks we're doing truck stuff?
It's a little bit like that, but we kind of have crews to each part of the product line. So we actually kind of do lean manufacturing here. And what that means is that basically we try to keep so much product on the shelf. And once we get down to amount of products that we're like, okay, we're down to the last 5, we have a little card there that we pull, and then we go and reorder, or we put those back into production. So we have a crew that's kind of set up to just building control arms all day long. We have 2 guys that are just building chassis all day long, et cetera. So we kind of, it's a group of effort here, and we just try to schedule out. We look at the monthly sales, the yearly sales, and we try to stock and keep everything on the shelf. And a lot of the product gets powder coated. The chassis don't. But we usually don't powder coat until we have only so much on the shelf, because, you know, we don't want to keep them. So we just kind of got a little rotation. We just kind of keep going and try to keep product on the shelf.
Cool. One of the questions that kind of came up on social media when I was posting this stuff was, you know, the C20 and the 3/4 ton, the C30, the 1 ton. You guys also do and provide parts for the big boy trucks as well.
Yes, we do make C30 chassis. The C30s are more for the towing. They have gooseneck package on it and stuff, you know, for people that kind of want to build a little tow rig. So we do offer the C30s in a full chassis only. We don't do a front and rear kit. Now, granted, you can still do a front kit, our front cross member, but we don't have no like back half or parts for that. And then the C20s, they fit in between that. So we do offer chassis and front kits for those. We don't have a rear kit for the C20 just because the frame rail is taller like the C30. But we do have some parts that do work for that and go back and forth. So we try to fit all of the 3, the C10, C20, and C30. We try to have a product for all of those people.
And for the audience, the difference is going to be, like he said, the frame rail is going to be a little taller. On the tow truck, on Frito-Lay, it's a 71 C30. I think it's about 11 inches. And I think on Yellowstone C20, which really I don't think there's any difference there on that. I think it's also about 11 inches. And I know guys have said, okay, I'm going to lay a piece of 4x4 interior. I'm going to just sawzall the bottom 3 inches of that sumbitch, and I'm going to freaking, you know, put that together and beef that up. But that's the difference. Like when you say I can't create or I don't have a back half, that's not going to fit into the frame rail, the stock frame rail, whereas on a C10 it would. The front half, it does morph into pretty much the same front half, and that's why that's going to work. Is that? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, all those trucks had the same crossmember front end patterns. I mean, obviously there's a little bit difference between the 63 to 72 frames versus square bodies, but in reality, it's the same components. The spindles, obviously different because, you know, it was 8 lug and it had a bigger spindle shaft, and ball joints are slightly different, but more of the core of the front ends are all the same.
Yeah, it's just, think about that back half for the audience. Think about a real tall, meaty, it's actually a thicker gauge, and it's a taller chassis to handle that. And I know Reyna Brothers has they're building a square crew cab dually that's got that, like you said, you're going to have that tow perspective built into that, and that's a pretty classy setup.
Yep. Milo's building that truck now. and he has our full chassis that's just designed for the C30s only.
Cool. Coil over or bags, what are you seeing more there?
Well, for us, since we've basically started the business with airbags, we're still seeing a huge increase with air. And as companies like AccuAir develop, better quality air management side, and you've got companies like Slam Specialties that are building really great quality airbags, airbag is kind of still staying strong. Go look at almost all the new Mercedes, Escalades, Audis. They're all coming with factory air ride. So I actually think that we're going to see more of an increase with air over that. But coilovers have done really well. They've picked up for us. It's kind of newer for us just because we've been in air so long. But I'm noticing even a lot older gentlemen and stuff that are wanting the air ride. And now, since we offer the chassis in two ways, we have air available, but it doesn't lay out. So we're even seeing a lot of guys that are kind of unsure. They don't want it to fully lay out on the frame. They're able to get a still performance chassis and put air on it and still have a little bit of adjustment and enjoy that. So it's kind of a good medium balance if somebody's unsure.
Cool. Yeah. And, it's funny how we evolve, air, now a little bit of a coil over, and then you're going to find a little bit of a blend there, and it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out at the end. But the bottom line is you have options, and those options are provided in multiple different formats, and Chop and Block can cover you there. Couple more here just to bring it home. About how many chassis you think you've built, just from a C10 perspective?
We're well over 150 chassis in the last 3 years since we started the launching of it. I haven't looked at the numbers, but that's where we're at, and we're seeing huge increase weekly on ordering C10 chassis.
What do you think you guys ship out a week or a month from C10 perspective?
C10 is a good portion. It's probably about 40% right now in product, give or take. But I would say we're averaging probably 10 chassis a week in the C10.
Wow, that's awesome. How about a region? Do you see a state or a region where you're shipping a lot of your stuff, a lot of your product?
Yeah, California, which we're at. A lot in Texas, which is also probably pretty known. But we do ship a lot to Australia. We're seeing a lot going to Australia. We ship quite a few chassis that way.
Cool. One of the things that, kind of specific just to you, because I get to see you every year at SEMA, do you think that, do you get a lot of customer interaction and get to meet a lot of people there when you're there? Because it seems like you're always pretty busy, pretty cranking when I do run into you there.
Yeah, SEMA does very well. The last few years that we've had a booth there, it has done very well. We get a lot of customers, a lot of unique people stopping and seeing something different, and I think it does very well. Literally, I talk all day long at SEMA when the show opens. I can't even take a lunch break or to even get a bottle of water. We just always have that many people talking to, and it's great, and filling in with people that stuff they've never seen. And it's amazing still every year. People come and are like, wow, I've never seen anything like this, and, et cetera. And I think there's just so many people there at SEMA that it's just hard to catch all that. And not everybody's on social media, so not everybody sees all that.
Yeah, that's foreign to us because that's where we do so much and the way that we're kind of set up for a lot of the truck guys. Speaking of social media, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best contact for Chop and Block?
We do a lot on Instagram. You can go on Instagram and click on the site and send us an email or give us a call. Or you can always call one of our great dealers. We do have a lot of great dealers out there that push our product that can help you out as well. Some of those are Switch Suspension, AZ Pro, BC Fab. A lot of those guys are good big dealers for us.
Cool. Vince, you guys are kicking ass over there. I can't wait to get my setup personally for my tow truck and get that thing going and started. We're happy you're involved with that. And really, we just wish you continued success. And for the C10 Nation, when you're looking at a chassis, we want you to consider Chop and Block. And that's why we're doing this, to give everybody, a little bit more information and just educate as we go. And it's people like Vince, his dad, the company that continue to make the C10 movement what it is, because they provide so many rad parts. And really, the ingenuity continues to evolve. You said that, it's like we're just trying to make our product better as we go. And some of those things like the air management and the sensors and things like that just continue to keep kicking ass.
Yep, that's what we're trying to do is just make the product better every day for people, and to come up with new, unique ways to make these vehicles and these builds just that much better.
Sweet. Thanks, Vince. Chopping Block. Check them out. Social media. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, I've been buying my truck parts from brotherstrucks.com for over 20 years now. These guys just aren't selling parts. They build trucks. They have their own trucks. They attend shows. They're part of our community. I saw Jim Flanders at C10s in the park in Texas and also at Dino's Get Down out here in Arizona. And that's why I continue to buy my parts from Brothers. One thing I remember Jim Flanders saying when I interviewed him for the podcast, when we buy parts, we buy the best parts possible so that you, the consumer, will get the best parts possible. Sure, they have the opportunity to buy a lesser made, lesser quality part, but they know that it's going to you, the C10 Nation. So when you buy your parts from brotherstrucks.com, rest assured you're getting the best part possible. So when you're looking to restore your 1947 through 87 Chevy or GMC truck, go to brotherstrucks.com. That's brotherstrucks.com. Have you heard about Marque's new square body molding? Guess what? You could check it out. Squarebodymolding.com. Squarebodymolding.com. Something that's been in the works and it's finally out. It debuted at SEMA 2018 on SSO2, the highest quality trim you can get for your square body, whether that's short bed, long bed, Blazers, Suburbans, or even crew cabs. That's it. Squarebodymolding.com, painted to match. If you like that 1 year 1977 yellow, they'll have that too. Pre-orders are going on right now, and they will ship first order, first shipped. So if you've been looking for the best for your square body trim, head on over to squarebodymolding.com. All right. Keeping it going, cruising it along. Spencer Rideman Ranch. And I'll tell you what, Spencer, welcome to C10 Talk. We're glad to have you aboard on this chassis kind of episode series. And the way we kind of got exposed to you was our buddy Brad, R.A. Brad, and his SEMA build. So welcome, my brother.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, man.
So how the hell did Brad and you find each other?
Kind of a long story, but essentially just from some mutual friends. He got in touch with me just over the internet and threw out an idea of what he had going for a truck, and it just kind of fit in our wheelhouse. And it was awesome going back and forth with him. We were able to kind of collaborate and throw a bunch of ideas at it, and just kind of evolved from there.
All right, cool. So tell us, the audience, the C10 Nation, who you are, where you're located, and how long you've been building chassis.
So my name's Spencer Rideman, obviously. We're in the Pacific Northwest out here in Sandy, just outside of Portland, Oregon. We've been in business going on 4 years now. We actually have been doing this for quite a while, but branched out on our own. We offer all sorts of different parts for all sorts of different vehicles, mainly the C10 stuff, obviously, as well back to the 4754 first series stuff. We now cover stuff from 47 to 87, really, so anything in between.
So how'd you get into it? How'd you get into building chassis?
So my background's actually in off-road. I worked for an off-road shop right out of high school, and went to school for mechanical engineering, and things just kept progressing. From there, worked at some bigger hot rod shops here locally. Everything just kind of started to come together, and teamed up with a buddy of ours, Brooke Almares, and we started on our first real big back half conversion, and things kind of spiraled out of control after that.
Now, Brooke's local up there, right?
Yeah.
He's got a couple C10s, been a couple cover trucks, right?
Yeah, Brooke's a phenomenal builder. It was great to be able to work with him and, again, go through a bunch of ideas and try some new stuff. His trucks are phenomenal, so certainly can't complain about the opportunity to work on them.
Yeah. I mean, he built some killer stuff, and obviously right in our wheelhouse, the C10 era of builds that he's got. He seems to love the 67s and 68s and the colors that he puts down, and he's a painter by trade, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, he's a full body guy, but he does it all. He every nut, every bolt he's a part of. And again, just phenomenal with all the detail that he does on all of them.
Yeah, that's got to be cool for you to be part of that evolution. What tell us something a little bit about, maybe something we don't know about your chassis or what you guys are doing over there.
Well, which one? I guess we can start with the C10 stuff since that's what it's based on.
Yeah, let's start and end with C10s because we that's where we want to be for this one. So yeah, give us a little bit of an idea of what maybe we don't know. And I'll be honest with you, most people aren't going to know, including myself, because you've got some big dogs out there, and you've got your Porterbuilt, your Chop and Block, GSI, Roaster Shop, and then I thought, hell, I've got to, I need to reach out to, some smaller guys, and you're one of those guys. So tell us a little bit about Rideman Ranch. Tell us about, your product and what you hope to continue to do with your company and with this product and getting it out to the C10 Nation.
Okay. So one of the big things with our chassis that we really like to incorporate is the Mandrel bent rails. It gives a really solid platform with a really good look. We transition this stuff into our back half kits as well, but more specifically with the chassis, it's really based on the strength that we can get out of them. All of our chassis incorporate, a Watts link, which has become a standard. We don't deal with any of the track bar stuff. We integrate the bag cross members to everything. It's a fully welded chassis. It doesn't bolt together whatsoever. We offer a couple different variances with body mounts, so we kind of have you guys covered on that aspect of it. The front section of the frames are fully fabricated. The frames are narrowed, and it allows for a narrow track width with really good geometry with the IFS. We incorporate, all the major components with all of it. So we're using the CPP modular spindles on them, the power rack and pinions. We produce our own billet tie rod adapters here in-house. It just, with our newest chassis, we've integrated the inner frame stiffeners as well, which is two completely formed pieces, so they're not welded together. Basically, we're really trying to make the most solid chassis that we can to really get away from the factory design, because they weren't really all that great, and going from there.
So when you say narrow the front end, how much narrow or more narrower are you than a standard C10 chassis?
So I believe a standard C10, you're right around 65 inches in the front. We're actually narrowed all the way up to a 60-inch track width, so 2.5 from each side. It allows these big wheel and tire combos to be able to still turn while you're low, which was a big concern, and that goes to working with a bunch of different customers that we have. That kind of seemed to be our the biggest complaint that we got was just the performance at a low ride height. Obviously, these things look really cool when they're low. That's kind of the whole point of it. So being able to utilize that, and unfortunately, that means really narrowing a lot of stuff, and it makes things tight, but the overall product becomes a lot better that way.
So what do you do for a header, because already with like a stock chassis or somebody who's running a normal stock width, some of that shit doesn't even fit when you get into your steering linkage and stuff. How are guys modifying, or what's the perspective on that?
So we've had really good luck with the rear dump hugger headers. A couple different companies make them. Doug Thorley makes a set. We have a brand that we use quite a bit locally. It does get really tight. Our C10 kits, we can adapt the steering with just 2 U-joints, so it's real basic. On some of our other kits, it does get a little bit more elaborate. But, it's kind of a sacrifice that you have to make to, again, get that performance value out of it.
You said something about the inner frame stiffeners. Now, you said you're a full welded chassis. Do those come welded in, or did you say they're bolted in after the fact?
Yeah, so what we actually do is each side is formed out of one piece and welded to the chassis. From there, we have bolt-in cross members, if you will. Mm-hmm. They're essentially the pads that the tranny can bolt into. So by doing it that way, we have a couple different sets of bolt-in cross members to adapt to the different styles of trannies. So your Turbo 350, your 4L60, the 4L80s. And then we also add a bolt-in rear cross member as well. That's where you can tie into a carrier bearing for a two-piece driveline. I know a lot of guys still try to run the one-piece, but for as low as these things are getting and as big a wheel and tire combos as everyone's running, a two-piece these days really works out well.
Cool. Now, when you guys, it seems like a lot of the suspension guys have kind of started out with the front half, back half. Do you guys even offer anything like that? Or are you pretty much just like, listen, we're going to do full chassis and that's where we're going to have our bread and butter be?
Full chassis are definitely the direction that everything's going, especially for what we have going. But we still do offer a complete bolt-in IFS system for the 63 through 87 C10s, as well as we offer a Mandrel bent back half that you actually will cut your factory frame right behind the rear body mount, and from there everything's replaced. We CNC cut the whole pattern for the body mounts into what we call frame spars. It's essentially the fabricated pieces that connect the factory rail with the Mandrel bent rail. That allows the customer to literally bolt the entire back half onto their chassis using 8 bolts. The install is really easy. It allows a lot of these guys that can't weld to bolt the system together and have a shop weld it up for them, and being able to still get a rolling chassis out of it. We supply those kits with new fabricated body mounts as well. So going back to if some guys are trying to body drop some of this stuff, we have some options there, as well as just offering a new product for them.
And what did you call that again? Where they're coming together, the stock, chassis, the frame rail, and then yours?
Frame spars is what they've been dubbed.
Okay. Now, is that the same for the front then too? I mean, when a guy says, okay, really they're keeping all their front, geometry. How does that work with your control arms? Because are you making, the wide control arms versus the narrow control arms, or are they all the same? Because your stock frame, your frame is a little bit narrower versus, say, a stock frame. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So it's 2 different sets of control arms that we use for those.
Sure.
We were able to change the geometry on some things with our chassis, just because we didn't have the constraints of the factory frame. We were able to kind of move a couple things around and just get a little better numbers out of some of the camber change, as well as some of the bump steer. The factory bolt-in IFS stuff, we're limited to what a factory frame has, as well as trying to make it so it's still a bolt-in system for the customer. So we lose a little bit there, not a lot, but we were just able to gain all of it back by going to the full chassis.
What would you say, in your opinion, is the weakest part of a stock chassis? So if a guy's thinking, hey, I want to go lower, but I want my, chassis to be a little bit more stout, what's something that they could look at that you offer?
Well, we offered just some of the basic stuff. A really cheap and easy one is the tube core support cross members. It ditches the factory sheet metal setup and replaces it. We use an 1 3/4 DOM tube that has CNC cut brackets on either side. You remove the factory core support brackets and are able just to bolt this in. Something as small as that really reinforces the front end quite a bit. Our trailing arm cross members that we offer for the stock guys is a fully fabricated cross member that bolts into factory location. It's pre-built with the exhaust cutouts. So when you are low, you're not having to run exhaust underneath this stuff. So kind of doubles up. It allows you to stiffen the chassis as well as make it a little bit easier to run everything. We're working right now on some second generation parts, and an internal frame stiffener for the stock chassis is going to be one of them. We don't offer that now. It's only with our full chassis. So that will definitely make a huge difference as well. The factory frames, to answer your question, are really the problem in themselves.
Yeah, I could just see where guys are wanting to stiffen them up, like you said, with whether it's the core support and some things. And just the thing is, we have all levels, right? You have the low budget. Right now, my son and I, he's 16. We're going to work on his 66, and it's like there's just not a lot going on. But at the same time, I don't perceive him pushing it through an autocross and just kind of upgrading on some of the different things. And then you get the full-blown autocrosser or the guy who's like, dude, I want the best, baddest chassis ever built. And so just as you are, the manufacturer, it's like, dude, you're trying to make products and things for everybody.
Right. No, totally. The core support stuff sells really well. Our trailing arm cross members sell really well. We have a universal tube transmission cross member for guys doing motor swaps. Again, it's stronger and ties stuff together, and they're all fairly inexpensive parts. We used to have a rear tube cross member located near the bumper brackets. It wasn't something that a lot of guys were really into. Some of them bought them with their kits. It definitely helps strengthen some stuff up, but with all the cross members, if you're not putting in, say, a Boyd tank or something, the rear of it stays decently strong. Yeah,
and pretty open, and depending on what you're doing back there. It's funny because that real estate gets consumed really quick with whether it's a fuel cell, your air management, and it's like, well, I've got a Boyd tank here, I've got AccuAir here, I've got my batteries here, and before you know it, you're like, shit, I ran out of real estate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, wires and everything else going, and your air management and your airlines. Why should the C10 Nation choose, Rideman Ranch? What will give us an idea of why our guys, our girls, our builders should reach out to you and look at you for their chassis needs?
So one thing that we have going is we're not a large production shop. So within reason, everything's built to order, and we can really kind of to cater to your needs. Again, when it comes to wheels and tires, air management, fuel cells, batteries, all this stuff comes into play, especially in the real estate, like you're talking. We do a really good job of consolidating all of that and packaging it very well. And each of our chassis and our back half kits are built to the information that we're receiving from the customer. So there's a huge difference in air ride between, say, a guy that's running a 405 series to a guy that's running a 265 series, in heights and where things lay out and where ride height is. By catering to that, you're going to get a better overall performance with your chassis or parts, and a better ride quality, and be able to get the usable travel that these systems are set up for.
So one chassis doesn't fit all tires, and all tires don't fit all chassis is kind of what you're saying?
Pretty much. I mean, people get by with stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I know up here, especially in the Northwest, our road conditions aren't great.
Yeah.
And certainly things aren't flat. So, these bags offer anywhere from 8 to 9 inches of travel, and we try to make sure that you use all of it. And you lose a lot of that just in a wheel and tire combination.
Well, it's crazy too, and I think you bring up a great point. But I think the audience, they want to do so much with their truck, and autocross is a great example. Somebody who might have a cruiser, built a cruiser, and now they're like, well, I want to kind of drive it a little harder, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and so. The cool thing about trucks is how universal trucks are versus a passenger car. They can do everything from getting the Christmas tree to hauling, whatever yard work it's got. And it's like, I'm not saying some guys with their $80,000 C10s are going to go do landscaping out of it, but I do feel like, if you're going to have a hobby and you're going to have a truck as that hobby, you can do a lot with it. And I think our guys and our audience and the C10 Nation loves to push it to the max and get the most they can and do as much as they can with their truck.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just in the chassis aspect of it, our customers are spending a lot of money with us. We want to give them a product that is going to work for them and they're going to be happy with. And, like I said, we try to milk every little bit of that for each customer.
Well, you're kind of one of the newer kids on the block, maybe from the perspective of the C10 world, maybe not the off-road world. Do you have a company, a C10 or a chassis company that you look at and you're thinking, dude, they build awesome stuff, and you kind of, you look at them from an admiration perspective of what they're doing?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a huge fan of Nate's. It's been kind of funny to get to know him. His work's always been amazing. GSI, from a manufacturing standpoint, those guys are absolutely crushing it, and it's something that, eventually I would love to strive to become. Their products are top-notch, and design's always very cool. Really, everyone on the list that you were having on this podcast are all guys that I would consider looking up to. They've definitely paved the way for a lot of cool things and a lot of new ideas. It's cool to see stuff just constantly evolving with them.
Oh, that's awesome. I think it's cool that you're as honest as you are about it. And there's some old guards, some OGs out there like Nate that have been doing it. And then, we got some young blood in there, and you coming up through the ranks and pushing your stuff out there. And the evolution of C10 chassis, or just chassis themselves, continues to evolve. And that's pretty rad that that you're part of it and you're saying that. So thanks for your honesty.
Yeah, totally. I certainly don't think that I'm taking any money from them, and our shop's slamming right now, so more power to everyone,
There's a lot of meat out there. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's one thing that I think in the chassis industry, sometimes you look at it and you're like, is there really that many C10s? And you're like, there is, because they're all busy and they're all seem to be backed up. It seems to be one of those things that, there's plenty of trucks out there, and we're evolving. And now with the CK series getting as hot as can be, the OBS stuff. So let's jump into that. Give us a little bit of a cost breakdown on something that we can buy from Spencer.
So, let's see, our chassis themselves, we start at $8,000. We pretty much have a standard setup that we run on them. It's going to be the same parts and components that you'd find in any of our kits. So again, you're going to be getting the CPP spindles with them. We use airlift bags, KYB shocks. From there, we have options that step up from, say, the trailing arm suspension to a 4-link kit. We offer sway bar options. We integrate. You
were saying a Watts is included on everything?
Yes, yeah. So
okay.
We have the Watts with machine links. And that's why options for any of the accessories. We deal a bunch with AccuAir and a bunch with Boyd. So each of our kits have mounting systems that can be added on that completely integrate those systems to the rear of the chassis. Breaking it down to our kits, our back half kits, same options, sway bar, 4-link, comes with the Watts, bag, shocks, all of those accessories, again, can still be added onto that. For those, you're looking at $2,750. Our rear notch kits are just over $2,000. They're the fabricated style. We have them as a bolt-in modular system, so it's a 5-piece kit that you get. They come with trailing arm suspension, Watts link standard, and all the factory mounts and whatnot that you'd need. Our front kits are $3,500. Get you everything out to brakes. Again, we offer those between $63 and $87. That includes shipping on those kits.
Wow, that's good. So shipping is included on the kits, but not the chassis, I'm assuming.
No, not the chassis and not the back half. Our pricing structure, anything that UPS ships is priced with shipping included. Freight shipping is just a standard of $200 is added, and that's anywhere to the local 48. Okay. We've shipped other places, but it gets a little crazy.
Yeah, so you guys are looking at about 8 Gs for a full chassis, not shipping included, and then there's probably some options there, right? Is that including some upgradable options there? So I'm just kind of keeping it separated. 8 Gs on the chassis, 35 for a front, and then you said 27 and 2,000 for the rear. So I'm trying to just kind of decipher between the two on the rear there, just to kind of clear that up.
Yeah, so we didn't really get a chance to talk about just the more basic notch kits that we offer. But our complete back half kits, what I was talking about, that goes up to the actual rear body mounts, you're looking at $2,750.
Okay.
They have the same add-on options as what our chassis would, meaning the sway bar, the 4-link option, the integrated accessories, those items. And then for just over $2,000, we have our notch kits, which is a 5-piece system. It's not a complete back half. It pretty much replaces everything on your frame from your axle back. We supply new formed rear frame rails as well as a formed rear cross member that bolts into that system, meaning you're not replacing any of the factory frame back there.
Okay.
Or reinstalling, I guess.
But you're replacing the rear cross member, trailing arm cross member.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be supplied with it.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of different options, obviously, and then the shipping is going to be factored into it. You're saying, hey, UPS ships it, and Brown can get it to you, then a couple $100, and just tons of options. It's pretty cool to kind of see how many different things and different options you have. Are you up to OBS yet? Are you going to start building some OBS stuff?
Yeah, actually, we're getting ready to release the first back halves for them. We're working with a customer right now on a complete chassis. So the OBS stuff is definitely on our radar. It's definitely where it seems the industry is moving. So we want to be as up to speed as possible. And you're going to find a lot of the same characteristics of the chassis that we just talked about incorporated in those as well.
Cool. Yeah, it makes sense. And honestly, your price points are right where most of the industry is as well. It's kind of hard over, radio to keep it all, sorted out just right for the audience. If you're looking to consider Rideman Ranch, then you guys will work it out with Spencer. You'll get the details, but you kind of get the idea. The biggest thing I think is going to be, the shipping of a full chassis. So you're saying about 8 G's for a chassis. I'm sure there's a solid $2K in there that can be upgraded if the audience chooses, and then shipping can be, right around, probably right around a cool G to a little more, right?
Yeah. We've sent some front and rear kits by freight that are about half of the chassis size to the East Coast, and you'll be all at $1,000 easily for a full chassis. And yeah, like you said, there's lots of upgrades that we offer with the full chassis. With a lot of guys, we're a PEM direct dealer, which is 9-inch housings. So we do a lot of axle upgrades at the same time. So, we can get you covered one way or another and work with whatever price point you're looking for.
It's a classic snowball storm. You look at it, if you guys get online, you look at it's Lab 302, and we're going to get into that, why the hell that's his Instagram. But if you get on Spencer's Instagram, I mean, you look at the chassis, it's gorgeous. And it's one thing, get those frame stiffeners, get that rear end, and then one thing leads to another. And you're like, well, I'm already here. I might as well do this. And it's some really killer looking stuff. So Spencer, I'm going to hit the lightning round with you. We're cranking on time here. Give me a lead time. What kind of lead time are you looking at?
So full chassis are typically quoted out at 12 weeks. The bolt-in kits were between 4 and 6 right now. Rear kits, 4 or less. Mandrel bent kits, which are the complete back halves, are definitely varying right now. The rails themselves are the one thing that we cannot manufacture in-house. It's actually the only thing we can't. So we're at the mercy of the vendor at that point. Typically, a 4 to 6 week timeline is reasonable, but I've seen them go for more and I've seen them go less.
So you're outsourcing the Mandrel bent rails?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's the one piece of equipment we don't have yet. It's definitely on the radar, but it's a chunk of change.
Sure.
So it is going to be outsourced, and we just kind of got to play ball with the companies that are doing it for us.
Okay. Well, plan accordingly for the audience. Coil over or bags? What are you seeing more of right now?
So we're strictly bags. Later this year we have hopes of releasing some coilover options, but anything that comes out of the shop is air ride right now.
Well, guess what? That answered that one pretty quick. So bags only for Rideman Ranch. Skill level 1 to 10, 1 being installing a battery and 10 being a full chassis shop, some full high-end builder. Where do you put in your setup? Let's say your front and back half setup.
The rear kits, I would say a 5 or under. Again, a lot of the stuff is indexing off of factory hole locations. It's a cut here, install here, bolt together, and weld it, whether it be the customer or a shop that's doing it. Our front kits, again, 100% bolt-in minus. We do still use a rack notch in our kits, so there is some welding involved in the front end. But all in all, it certainly isn't rocket science putting them together.
Well, and I think Nate talked about it, and I think the audience, just to understand kind of what a rack notch is, so you're saying on your setup, Spencer, you do cut into the frame at the bottom side so that rack can sit up in there, and the ability for those, ends to steer and turn, there's some clearance there on the chassis. So you've got a couple rack notches that you're installing or need to be installed and welded in? Yes. Yep. Okay.
We designed them that way, again, going back to the geometry aspect of it, and at the capabilities at the time, we didn't feel that we could safely lower that rack and still manage to keep all the stuff that we wanted. You are going to have to cut in and weld that stuff. Again, it's certainly not hard. You template the rack notch itself and simply install it and weld it up.
I think if a guy can weld, then that's fine. But there are some guys who probably are a little intimidated by that, even to this day. So for the audience, if you're looking at that, then you're going to consider, just so you know, and then you're going to probably have one of your buddies either weld it, or you're going to take it somewhere to be welded, or you're going to start learning how to weld, and that's going to be part of the process. How many chassis have you built when you factor in kind of just the C10 style chassis? Where are you guys at on numbers right now?
So the chassis themselves are newer to us. We released them, last August, I want to say. It was kind of going right into SEMA. So we have, I want to say 5 of the C10s. We've done a handful of the 5 through 9s. We're working on our first 47 to 54 completes. And then we haven't done any square body stuff yet. So full chassis wise, we're around 10, a little over. So still new on that aspect. But the orders keep coming in. So definitely a lot more by the end of this year.
Yeah. I mean, how are you guys looking? You getting plenty of steam?
Yeah, definitely. The word keeps growing. It's been great because we've got a lot of local customers going now. There's not a lot of this stuff going on in the Pacific Northwest. So being able to work with those guys is great, and being able to see them at shows and around town always puts a smile on my face. So can't complain about that. Our reach is growing, which I'm ecstatic about, and we just keep our head down and keep on working.
Well, that brings me to my next question. I mean, where are you seeing these orders? Are you seeing them locally in that kind of region, or what state or what region are you kind of taking orders from?
No, absolutely everywhere. Last week we were shipping parts to South Carolina. We also shipped down to Florida. Last month, Maryland. Again, a lot of local stuff in the Oregon, Washington, Idaho area. We see a bunch of stuff in Colorado, actually. A lot of work in Texas. So kind of all over.
Cool. Well, keep the orders. I hope they keep rolling in and keep them coming. And we're glad that you were, part of this. Any kind of parting words? Well, let's go into this. Lab 302. So the audience, how do you get a hold of Spencer? How do you find his products? And explain a little bit of that 302 for us.
Okay, so we're on Instagram as Lab 302, which I know that you guys gave me a hard time on Brad's episode about. You can find us on Facebook at Rideman Ranch Customs. Our website is ridemanranch.com, and again has all of our products on there. The quick backstory on Lab 302 was it was the first shop that I subleased from a buddy of mine that didn't even have a man door. It was a roll-up door only, and there was spray painted on the parking lot out front was 302, and we called it the Lab, so it became Lab 302.
Dude, that's cool shit, man. That's what it's all about. So you kept the Lab going. If you guys want to check him out, Lab 302 on InstaWiener, and obviously you copied the emails. I think it's cool because you're up there. Sometimes, individually, we're getting to the point now where some people, they want local love, and you're up there to give that Pacific Northwest some love. Tell Brooks I said hi. Tell the Brady. I'm sure you might see Brady, our buddy Left Coast, up there as well. Spencer, thanks for your time, and we wish you nothing but continued success in the C10 and in the CK and the truck chassis industry.
For sure. Ronnie, thanks again, man. I really appreciate you letting me come on, and hopefully I didn't butcher it too bad.
Nah, you'll be fine, dude. That's a good thing about having me as a co-host. I butchered enough that make my audience and my guests look just fine. All right, brother. Well, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to get to the next one, and we're going to get this out. So, Spencer, thanks for the time. If you need anything, just hit me up anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, man.